The story introduces us to our protagonist, an adult whose hobby is playing on the computer like all of us, or at least like me. But after 3 long years of playing, the servers of his video game shut down. Determined not to be left with nothing to do, he starts looking for an ultra-difficult challenge game. In the process, he finds something. Suddenly, his screen distorts, and on a dark, creepy background, a text appears saying that it is a fantasy world of swords and magic, but with a special feature. It has no end. He is asked to choose the difficulty. Our protagonist focuses on one that says Hell Mode. He reads its description, which states that it is so difficult that he will not even have time to cry. Tired of the same taunts that video games usually throw at him, our protagonist clicks it. When he does, a class selection appears, with different levels of difficulty. He notices the Demon King class, but above it is the Summoner class. Without hesitation, our protagonist clicks it. After doing so, a warning appears, saying that he will start as a serf and will have to pass an exam. Eager to know what it is about, he clicks accept, and in the blink of an eye, he is absorbed by the screen. When he regains consciousness, he feels as if he is submerged in water. At first he likes it, but when he realizes that he cannot breathe, he panics. The next second, he wakes up as a newborn baby, so he has no more doubts that he has been reincarnated. Excited, he thanks the heavens for this opportunity. Yes, sometimes I wonder if they have family or something. His father lifts him into his arms and, seeing that he is a boy, decides to name him Alan. Here we are told that Alan needs 100 times more XP to level up than in normal mode, with no time limit. If he manages to escape that hell, he will surely discover a secret of that world. 1 year after his birth, we see him eating happily. Our protagonist summarizes his past life. He was 35 years old, had no money, no education, and no girlfriend. But thanks to a game, he was reincarnated and became Alan, a 1-year-old baby. He also adds that, luckily, everything is automatically translated into Japanese for him. By observing his situation, he understands that, just as the announcement said, he was born as a serf. He explains that his family farms cleared land to pay taxes to their lord. His father is named Rodan, a young man in his early 20s. Then there is his mother, Teresia, a kind and beautiful woman who is also around her early 20s. He mentions that he is their first child, but that soon he will have a little brother or sister. At that moment, he yawns, and his parents assume he is tired, so they take him to his bed. They leave him sleeping and go back to continue eating. As soon as they leave, Alan opens his eyes and raises his hands, saying, "Status open." When nothing happens, he feels disappointed. Even though he is now being taken care of and has clean diapers, he is supposed to be a summoner, and the fact that he cannot do anything discourages him. One last time, he tries to say the same words, and this time it works, but he screams in surprise. His parents hear him and immediately rush to help. Alan quickly makes the book disappear and pretends to be asleep. Seeing him so calm, they think it was just a dream and let him sleep again. Once alone, he makes the grimoire appear again, and this time opens it. Proud that he finally succeeded after a year of struggle, he looks at his stats. Turning the page, he sees a section that explains his summoner abilities, which work using experience points. And the more he uses them, the more experience he gains. Seeing that he can summon creations, he gets excited. He notices that he only has insects and beasts available, and that his rank is H. Yes, for the first time seeing this kind of rank, he wonders if it is the lowest one. At that moment, the grimoire turns the page and shows him a system message apologizing for the late delivery of the grimoire. Alan does not give it much importance and focuses on testing his ability. He tries different methods, but none of them work. He decides to stay calm, and then it occurs to him that maybe he needs to create the creature before summoning it. With that idea, he does it, and we see him excited as he obtains a card. He is about to summon it, but he hears his mother approaching, so he pretends to be asleep. Realizing that it is dangerous to continue at that moment, he decides to leave it for tomorrow. After all, he is already sleepy, since, as expected, 1-year-old children do not have much energy. The next day, we see Rodan working, cutting down a tree. Teresia, on the other hand, is washing clothes and playing with Alan. After playing, she asks him to lie down and sleep. Once he is alone, Alan takes the chance to keep practicing. He summons the grimoire and takes out the H-rank insect. At that moment, the card becomes electrified, lighting up the room, while Teresia notices nothing because she is busy cleaning. Alan covers his eyes until the light returns to the grimoire, summoning a giant insect that jumps straight onto Alan's face. He gets scared and falls to the floor. After calming down, he sees that it is a grasshopper and wonders if it will obey his orders. Alan tries calling it and asks it to come closer, but the grasshopper simply turns around and leaves. Seeing that it did not work, Alan wonders if the grimoire has something that can help him. Right away, he checks its stats and notices that it has no name and that he needs to give it one. Since it is a grasshopper, he names it Denka. The name is written into the grimoire, and he also notices a category called Blessings. He sees that Denka gives 1 point to endurance and 1 point to speed. When Alan checks his own stats, he notices that they have increased by 1 point, and he accidentally shouts with joy. At that moment, Teresia arrives. Seeing Denka walking near her feet, she screams in fear and steps on it. And just like that, the insect Denka's life comes to an end. Yes, leave a comment for poor Denka, may he rest in peace. But anyway, on the other hand, we see Rodin hunting and Teresia doing fieldwork, while in the following days, Alan continues creating several H-rank creatures. We then see him summoning Chorosuke, a mouse. Just like Denka, it has low intelligence, but it has a special skill called Usmir, which it only uses when Alan tells it to, and Denka, for his part, can jump. So Denka did not really die. He can simply be summoned as many times as Alan wants. He mentions that fierce creatures roam all over this world, but he still does not feel ready to face them. For now, he can store up to 10 creatures that he has created. The blessings from each one are important. For example, if he stores Chorosuke, Alan's attack increases by 10 points. Thanks to this, he is stronger than other children his age and is even able to use a small axe. So far, he has realized that leveling up and unlocking skills is 100 times harder in Hell mode, and at this rate, it feels like it will never end. Just then, someone knocks outside the house. Teresia goes to check, holding Alan in her arms, and sees Rodin covered in blood, but he quickly clarifies that it is not his. Rodin approaches Alan and asks if he behaved well today, telling him that his father killed a wild boar, amazing his wife as he proudly talks about his achievement. Alan explains that Rodin is a farmer, but he hunts with the other men during autumn and winter. Rodin asks Alan if he would like to go see the boar. Alan gets excited because it will be the first monster he has ever seen. After he agrees, Rodin puts him on his shoulders, and before they leave, Teresia gives both her husband and her son a kiss. We then see the two of them walking together. Alan mentions that it is the first time he has truly admired the scenery outside their home. Along the way, Rodin shows him some albilones, birds that migrate north at this time of year, and announce the arrival of autumn. Taking him down from his shoulders, Rodin tells him the origin of his name. Alan was named after the albilones. They can go wherever they want and fly with their own wings to the ends of the world as free beings, even though Teresia was upset when she learned the meaning of his name. After a while, they arrive to see the wild boar. Alan is amazed by its size and feels a bit scared having it so close. Just then, a friend of Rodin named Helda arrives to announce that the hero of the day has arrived. Everyone applauds him for hunting the boar, but Rodin says he was just lucky. Leaving that aside, he introduces his son, Alan. He greets him politely, which surprises Gelda, who asks if he is really only 1 year old, since his own son, Karema, does not speak like that. Karema happily greets Alan and says he is pleased to meet him. At this point, Alan asks if the big boar is strong. Gelda answers yes, explaining that it is a C-rank monster, and that it takes about 20 men to kill one. Alan listens carefully and concludes that it makes sense. In the afternoon, his father tells him it is time to return home. In the next scene, 10 months have already passed. Alan finally manages to level up and can now summon G-rank creatures. He can also synthesize summons and has gained double the storage space compared to before. But that is not all. His grimoire can now even write his thoughts into the book. Eager to try synthesis, he decides to recharge his energy. At night, he eats a full bowl, which surprises his parents. We then see him trying to synthesize 2 Chorosukes, but unfortunately it does not work. The grimoire informs him that he does not have enough mana. Alan gets upset when he reads this, so he tries to create a new G-rank creature. However, the grimoire gives him the same warning again. Disappointed, he exclaims that hell mode is cruel. And well, what can be said? He chose this himself. A couple of years pass. Alan is now 3 years old. His stats have increased and he finally has enough mana to synthesize. We see him do this with Pionta and Nobuke, resulting in a G-rank bird that he names Choppy. He summons it and then checks its stats, seeing that its special skill is imitation. He understands that this means it can imitate voices after hearing it do so. He finds this amazing since it will be useful for confusing enemies. After that, he also summons Pionta and Mogusuke, which turn out to be a frog and a mole. He asks Pionta to use provocation, and we see it jumping around, which Alan considers perfect for bait. Then, he asks Mogusuke to dig a hole. We see this hard worker dig a hole in less than a minute. Alan takes this as a blessing, since he can use it to set traps. Seeing that the abilities of G-rank summons are quite useful, he declares that he will master his stats and conquer this world. While he is thinking about this, Mogusuke gets excited and digs another hole under our protagonist, making him fall in. While complaining about the pain, Alan hears the ringing of bells. He understands that it is already 3 o'clock, which means that she has arrived. At that moment, he hears the voice of a girl calling out, looking for him to play knights. Now we see him ready for battle. The girl introduces herself dramatically as Knight Kurena, while our protagonist introduces himself as Knight Alan, and both declare that they will fight with honor. Inside, our protagonist is dying of embarrassment, but he knows he cannot avoid it. Suddenly, the dangerous girl charges at him at great speed and swings her sword. Our protagonist manages to block the attacks thanks to the monkeys from his summons. Suddenly, his sword breaks, and without mercy, the little girl beats him up. In the afternoon, the girl says goodbye to Rodin and Teresia, promising that she will play with Alan again tomorrow, while our poor protagonist is left lying on the ground. His parents praise him for working hard. Alan thanks them, but remembering that his mother is pregnant, he asks her to let him help her. At night, while they are having dinner, Alan tells his father that since his mother's belly is already big, he will help her with the potatoes from now on. After all, his strength is already comparable to that of an adult, not even counting his summons. His mother refuses and tells him that he should just play with Kurena instead. Alan tries to respond, but his father asks him to be patient, saying that soon he will help in the fields until he gets tired. Alan understands that he is right. After all, it is almost impossible to escape the status of a serf, so he agrees to obey. His father is surprised that he understood, so he laughs. At that moment, Teresia tells him that lately she has seen him throwing many stones at the tree and asks why he does that. Alan answers that his father told him that some monsters appear outside the house, so he wants to protect his mother. Rodin believes this lie, even though the real reason was to test if he could gain other abilities. Teresia adds that he should also make sure to protect Kurena, although judging by how well she fights, it does not seem necessary. Rodin says that they are just playing at being knights, but he is looking forward to Alan's evaluation ceremony. This ceremony happens at the age of 5, when their god will see if he has any talent. Only if he has talent will he be able to escape farm life, which excites Alan. When winter arrives, Alan sees Denka playing inside a hole. He mentions that he can summon creatures all day without any problem now. Just then, Kurena calls him to play, and once again, she ends up causing him trouble. The game ends when his sword breaks. At that moment, Rodin arrives and sees that Alan lost again. Teresia goes out to greet him, but suddenly Denka climbs onto her leg, making her fall to the ground. Rodin rushes to check if she is okay, and she says she was just startled, but then she starts feeling labor pains. Immediately, Rodin asks Kurena to call her mother and runs off. Soon after, we see Teresia giving birth, while Alan is boiling water and says that he has never seen childbirth before. He then tells them that the water is ready and asks what else he should do. Rodin is about to tell him what to do next, but he forgets what comes after that. Fortunately, Kurena arrives with her mother and Gelda. Rodin thanks Matilda for coming, but wonders why Gelda is here too. Gelda says that he was just worried. Then Matilda orders all the men to leave. During the labor, Alan and Gelda fall asleep, while Rodin prays for everything to go well. Teresia gives it her all until morning, and then they hear the babies cry. Everyone goes in to see, and Teresia says that it is a boy. Now all that is left is to give him a name. Rodin says he already had one in mind and names him Mesh. Teresia thinks it is a cute name, but asks if he was inspired by another monster. It turns out he was, but Teresia just laughs about it. At that moment, Alan wonders why he was reincarnated. Even though he wanted a difficult game, he remembers that he had no money, no degree, and no girlfriend. He was just an ordinary salaryman. He mentions that he does not want attachments, but wants to build the best team and maximize all his abilities. Or at least, that was the plan until his brother arrived. Just then, his father calls him to come see his little brother. Alan approaches and calls him by his name, accidentally making him cry. Teresia tells him that it is fine, remembering that Alan cried even more as a baby. Finally, Alan says that he does not know how he will do it, but he would like to remove the serf status that they have. On a new day, Alan is walking alongside his father. He asks him what the evaluation ceremony is like. His father explains that it is a special event in which everyone from serf to noble must participate when they turn 5 years old. If it turns out that you have talent, you may be able to leave servitude, but the problem is that you will have many rivals. Alan asks why that is. His father then explains that as soon as they settled in those lands, people began having baby after baby, even worse than rabbits. Now there are many children about to turn 5, and Alan is one of them. Suddenly, they hear little Curena and her father in the distance, so they decide to go together. After walking for a while, they see the commoners' village in the distance. When they arrive at the place where the ceremony will be held, they see commoners and serfs already gathered. Suddenly, the doors open. 3 members of the church come out, blessing everyone in the name of Elmai, the god of creation. They wish them good luck and mention that the country has seen heroes whose bloodlines even trace back to servitude. This surprises some of the commoners, who find it hard to believe. However, the woman gives them examples. Classis the saint, who was born a commoner, and Burke, the lord of the sword, who was once a simple serf. Hearing this, Alan remembers that the game said classes such as hero and lord of the sword must start from a low social class. Although those were only game settings, he assumes they apply to this world as well. Because of this, it makes sense to him that everyone, from top to bottom, must undergo the ceremony. After the introduction ends, they are asked to enter. Inside, Alan observes the statues of the gods worshipped there. The one in the center is Mia, the god of creation, which reminds him of the time when the developers sent him a letter. At that moment, the evaluation ceremony begins. First, the village chief of Boji and his son Pelamus are called forward. They tell the boy to place his hand on the crystal ball, and when he does, his parameters appear on a metal plate. The boy follows the instruction, and they discover that he has talent as a merchant. His father is delighted and runs to congratulate him. One by one, others step forward. Some have no talent, while another gains the talent of axe user with a rank A attribute. People continue taking turns, and in the end, only the protagonist and Curena remain. The pink-haired girl is invited to go first. She runs forward excitedly, and when she places her hand on the crystal ball, it shines so intensely that everyone becomes worried. However, the church members are amazed, because it turns out she has the talent of Lord of the Sword, one of the best talents there is. Hearing this, the people present become excited, unable to believe that a Lord of the Sword has appeared in their small, remote village. Her father congratulates her. However, the girl looks disappointed because it is not the Chinese sword style. Alan, on the other hand, remains calm. After all, he already expected some kind of talent like that to appear to justify her overwhelming strength. Without further delay, the Reverend calls Alan forward. The protagonist feels anxious, believing that they will finally discover that he is a summoner. He places his hand on the crystal ball, and it begins to shine so brightly that it sends him flying. Everything points to something incredible. However, when he approaches the Reverend and asks about his talent, the man replies that, unfortunately, he has no talent. Alan, of course, cannot accept this. He steps closer to check his parameters for himself and discovers that all of them are rank E. Furious, he insults the developers and demands that they learn how to properly debug their game, because now no one will know that he is a summoner. At that moment, his father approaches him and, without bringing up the topic, tells him that they should go home because his mother is waiting. When they return, his mother and younger brother welcome them cheerfully. That night, they share dinner, and his parents tell him that talents do not matter, because he will always be their pride and joy. Seeing how understanding his parents are, Alan is grateful that he was allowed to be born into that family. The scene ends with a family hug. while everyone is asleep, the protagonist is testing his grimoire. He mentions that he learned something new that day. He is the only one in that world playing in hell mode, since everyone at the ceremony was 5 years old, which means they should all be level 1 just like him. However, the rank system probably reflects how much growth someone can expect each time they level up. He assumes that the reason all his attributes are rank E is because his progress in hell mode is only 1/100th of normal, and taking that into account, his ranks must be showing the same fraction of their true value. He thinks this would make normal people pull their hair out, but that is not his case. He is in this world to put mediocre games in their place, although first he needs the developers to fix this stupid game. Taking his grimoire, he plans to complain by writing down everything he thinks. The next day, he is seen walking with his mother. He asks what is wrong with his father because he seems to be acting strangely. Theresia explains that he has been like that since he came home late last night. That afternoon, they are going to Gelda's house to celebrate Karina's talent. The girl happily tells Alan that she discovered her talent is better than the Chinese sword. Alan acts surprised and asks if that is true. Karina continues, saying that she will become stronger now. At that moment, Michelda mentions that the village chief stopped by their house and gave them a celebratory bottle of liquor. Rodan is pleased, but remembering that he is upset with that family, he congratulates them and wishes them to enjoy the liquor. Gelda points out that in her house, guests drink first. Noticing this attitude, Alan wonders if his father is jealous because of the whole talent situation. However, he quickly dismisses the thought, remembering that his father is not that kind of person. At that moment, he hears the two adults begin to argue. Rodan says that Karina has an incredible talent and that it is something worth celebrating. In response, Gelda demands an explanation as to why he said they should cut ties with her family. Rodan clarifies that he does not want to, but since Karina will eventually join the knighthood and serve the country, they should not waste time socializing with serfs. Alan finally understands that his father is trying to do them a favor that they clearly did not ask for. Gelda grabs Rodan and tells him that it is not important at all. Rodan insists that it is, and the argument escalates. Alan asks Karina to calm them down. She grabs her sword and is about to step in, but the wives intervene first and strike them. With the problem resolved, Karina continues eating. Alan asks Milda if they always fight like this. She replies that they do, but that parenthood has helped calm them down, since they used to actually hit each other in the past. The mothers explain that the four of them are childhood friends who grew up in the same village. 10 years ago, news spread about establishing a new village, so they decided to join the effort together. They even had a group discussion about working together to build their own homes. They ask Alan if he noticed that their houses have the same design. He answers that he did. His father then explains that it was easier to build at the same time, so they worked together and divided the tasks. On another day, while the parents are working, they receive news that the Order of Knights is looking for Karina. Now, in the commoner's village, the parents and children gather together. The boy with the axe user talent also appears and asks the protagonist what he thinks he is doing there, saying that those without talent have no place in that village. Karina gets angry when she hears this and tries to strike him, but her father stops her. Suddenly, the village chief announces that the Order of Knights has arrived. The people step aside. The boy with the axe talent is astonished because the one who came is the captain himself, a sword master. He approaches the chief and asks about Karina, who is immediately called forward. The pink-haired girl and her father step ahead. The girl introduces herself politely. After observing her up close, the captain orders that a duel be held. Gelda questions this request, arguing that Karina is only 5 years old and has never even held a real sword. The captain reminds her that Karina possesses the talent of Lord of the Sword, so there should be no problem. Looking at her coldly, he asks whether they lied and dared to deceive a noble. Granbell then calls his vice-captain and orders him to prepare. The protagonist is confused by what is happening. The captain explains to Gelda that falsifying the results of the evaluation ceremony is punishable by death. Therefore, they must determine whether Karina's talent is genuine. With that, he announces a sword duel. Everyone is shocked. Gelda begs them not to do this, but the captain makes it clear that if Karina does not fight, her entire family will be executed. Karina shows no concern at all. When she sees a real sword, she becomes excited and tells her father that she will fight. She then stands face to face with the vice captain. They introduce themselves, and it is revealed that his name is Leibrand. Karena charges forward and swings her sword. Leibrand counterattacks, but the girl blocks his strike. When she is about to reach him, the vice captain uses his legs and kicks her, sending her crashing into the wall. Gelda and the others become furious and demand that they stop. However, Karena stands up and enters a berserk state, moving with incredible speed and strength as she attacks Leibrand. He can do nothing but block her attacks, and in a moment of carelessness, Karena breaks his sword. The captain declares the duel over. The girl returns to her senses and asks if it is already finished. Smiling happily, she thanks the vice captain, but he collapses to the ground, completely exhausted. Seeing this feat, Gelda rejoices and celebrates along with the soldiers. After witnessing everything, the captain has no choice but to believe. He approaches Gelda, congratulates him for raising her well, and apologizes for doubting them. He then invites them to a meal to discuss Karena's future, allowing them to bring their friends as well. They are then seen inside a very luxurious house, where the atmosphere is tense. The protagonist wonders why the boy with the axe and his father followed them, but sets that aside and decides to take some fruit to bring home. At that moment, the captain begins to speak. He introduces himself as Sinov and explains that he was sent by order of his lord to determine whether a true lord of the sword existed among them. In the end, he confirms that it is true. Addressing the village chief, he says that the frontier village was originally meant to be named in his honor once it was fully established. However, now that they know a lord of the sword was born there, his lord has declared that this historic event must be honored by naming it Karena Village instead. The chief does not question the decision and accepts it without hesitation. He then explains to everyone why Karena was subjected to such a test. 3 years ago, a lord of the sword was born into the family of a count and went on to serve the royal family. However, he failed to meet expectations, and after a re-evaluation, it became clear that his true talent was that of an ordinary swordsman. After this incident, it was discovered that many members of the nobility had exaggerated their talents. Because of this, the kingdom decided to thoroughly verify all evaluation results. Turning to Gelda, he apologizes once again for putting her daughter through that trial. He asks her to continue raising Karena carefully and help her grow, so that when she turns 12, she can study at the academy and eventually serve directly under the royal family. Alan is shocked when he hears this. At that moment, the boy with the axe asks if anyone can attend that academy and become a knight. His father tells him to behave and apologizes to the captain. The captain responds that in time, an instructor will be sent to the village, and he advises the boy to study hard and earn his admission to the academy. Hearing this, Karena tells the protagonist that he should study together with them as well. Alan replies that he will, but the other boy just laughs and says that Alan does not have the ability to do that. Karena steps in to defend him. However, the protagonist remains indifferent. After all, he is mentally a 40-year-old adult. The captain notices Alan's dark hair and eyes and asks who he is. Rodan replies that he is his son. Seeing that they have not been properly introduced, Gelda introduces them. Upon hearing the name Rodan, the captain asks if he is referring to the famous Rodan, the boar hunter. He immediately stands up and apologizes for being so rude to a legend of the village. This completely surprises Rodan, who asks what he means. The captain explains that the Baron is very fond of the giant boar meat that this village supplies every winter. According to what he has heard, Rodan is the man who takes on the most dangerous role during the hunts, and for that reason he is considered a true hero. He asks Rodan to please accept this praise on behalf of the Baron and himself. Seeing this, Alan cannot help but think that his father is truly amazing. In the afternoon, while they are returning home, his father teaches him an important lesson. Even though they are just simple serfs, they can still be recognized by great people. He tells Alan not to give up and to keep moving forward, no matter how hard the work may be. The protagonist promises to do so, but then changes the subject and takes out some fruit he grabbed for his mother, Mash, asking if he did something wrong. His father simply laughs, showing that he did the same thing, and even more. On a new day, we see our protagonist in a very good mood because he finally leveled up his summoning skill. He opens his grimoire and sees that he now has the enhancement ability, which allows him to make his summons stronger. And he has also unlocked F-rank summons. He wonders what would happen if he performed a synthesis, asking himself if he might even get a dragon. With all these new gains, he decides to do the tests later. That same night, he is seen having dinner with his family. It is revealed that Teresia is expecting another baby. When Alan is about to clear the plates, his mother feels the baby kicking. They then talk about what name to give the child if it turns out to be a girl. At that moment, the system notifies the protagonist that his MP is full. Without thinking, he reads the creator's name, Elmia. His parents assume that this is the name he wants for the baby girl. Surprised, they ask him to repeat it out loud. His mother asks what is wrong with him, since he has been very restless lately. Alan changes the subject and asks his father about his arm, since he does not see any injuries. Rodin explains that it is because he passed a trial of the gods during that day's boar hunt. In simple terms, he says it is a special moment where he feels a sudden surge of energy that removes all injuries and fatigue. Hearing this, Alan understands that he is talking about leveling up. He acknowledges that his father is strong and a true veteran, so he does not feel the need to check his stats to confirm it. With some frustration, Alan mentions that the only way for him to gain experience is by defeating monsters. Unfortunately, servants cannot leave the village without permission, unless it is for hunting. With this in mind, he casually says that he would like to join a hunt. His father firmly refuses, making it clear that hunting is not a game. After hearing this, Alan drops the topic, saying that he wants to become stronger. Later that night, he checks a message from the developers informing him that they have fixed the faulty text. They also sent an attached file showing only the raw data. From this, he discovers that he has S-rank intelligence and the same number of ranks as Kurena. This reassures him a bit. Now, without wasting time, he decides to enhance Denka. After doing so, he summons it to see it in person and notices that its appearance is slightly different. This excites him greatly, but at that exact moment, his mother arrives and mercilessly crushes poor Denka with a single stomp. The next day, Rodan says goodbye as he leaves to go hunting. Our protagonist, meanwhile, is thinking about what to do next. After finishing hanging the laundry, he starts combining more creatures, but none of them work. Then, a rather curious idea comes to mind, mixing an insect with a bird. This results in a new grass-type F-rank card. He feels a bit disappointed, but when he checks its stats, he discovers that it comes with an MP booster, which will allow him to last much longer. Still trying to stay optimistic even though it could take decades to level up, he decides to summon it. What appears is an apple with roots and limbs bursting with creativity. Our protagonist names it Apple. After that, he checks its stats and sees that it has a skill called Aroma. Alan does not understand what this does, so he asks it to use the skill. Apple does so, burrowing into the ground and making a sprout grow. When Alan smells it, he senses an essential oil-like aroma. Half complaining, he wonders if he is turned into a gardener, then collapses. At that moment, his mother approaches and thanks him for hanging the clothes. Alan asks Apple to turn back into a card, but it does not listen. His mother then notices the sprout and looks a bit confused. However, after smelling the aroma, she stops paying attention to it. Later on, our protagonist trains with Kurena. As usual, he ends up losing. Even so, the red-haired girl admits that he has become tougher lately. This surprises him. He checks his stats and discovers that both his sword skill and his endurance have improved. He wonders if Apple's aroma ability has some effect in combat or perhaps boosts something else. He then remembers that Fido, his wolf summon, has a skill called Bite. He wishes he could test it on someone, but he doubts that it would be a good idea. He looks at Kurena, who asks if something is wrong. Alan replies that it is nothing. In the afternoon, our protagonist trains his strength by throwing rocks at a tree trunk. Beside him is his little brother Mash, who gets bored and asks to go back home. Alan tells him to wait a bit. He reflects that he now has more responsibilities, helping his pregnant mother and taking care of his sister. So he considers stopping his throw training. Still, he does not want to quit, because he feels he is close to leveling up. As he is about to throw another rock, his brother asks about the trees near the wall. Over time, a small garden has formed there. Night falls, and Alan starts to worry because his father still has not returned. Teresia tries to calm him down, but suddenly they hear screams in the distance. Among them the name Rodin. They immediately rush outside and find Rodin badly injured. Being carried by others, once inside the house, Gelda explains that Rodin's stomach was pierced by a boar's tusk. They notice that the wound has been cauterized. Gelda adds that they managed to keep him alive thanks to a healing herb she bought with the money given to her by the knights, as an apology for what happened with Karina. One of Rodan's colleagues then blames the commoners for the incident. Everyone else supports the idea and suggests going to complain. Amid the commotion, Mash wakes up and, seeing his father in that condition, starts crying. Alan takes him away to calm him down. The other members also choose to leave them alone. Taking advantage of the moment with no one else around, Alan asks Gelda what really happened and why they are blaming the commoners. Gelda explains that a few days earlier they received a summons from the chief, who asked them to allow commoners to join the boar hunt. Alan asks why, and Gelda says that boar meat is valuable. Although most of it goes to the Lord, the leftovers are shared among the hunters and are often used as barter to obtain essential supplies. Because boars are dangerous, commoners never volunteer to join the hunt. However, people had heard about a hero among the servants. Alan assumes they are talking about Corinna, but Gelda clarifies that it was Rodan. She asks if he remembers when the captain called Rodan a legend. That reputation became an unofficial guarantee, and everyone believed the commoners would be safe as long as Rodan was there. Neither Rodan nor Gelda was comfortable with this decision, but they could not oppose the chief, so they went along with it. During practice, most of the commoners refused to participate. On the day of the hunt, those commoners were given the easiest role, keeping the boar's attention. They failed, and as a result, Rodan was badly injured. Gelda adds that they were lucky to still defeat the beast, and that tomorrow they would bring their share of the meat. Before leaving, she tells Alan and Mash to stay strong and keep moving forward. The next day, the protagonist and his mother tend to Rodan's wounds. When he wakes up, everyone feels relieved. Seeing his family together makes Alan feel guilty because he realizes he treated his new life like a game, while others were struggling just to survive. Gelda arrives with meat, and Rodan apologizes for being a burden. Determined to change, Alan promises that from now on he will protect his family. He proves it by helping draw water from the well. Even though the adults warn him that it is too heavy, he lifts it easily, shocking everyone with his strength. Back at home, he thinks about investing all his growth into physical strength. Later, he goes to harvest potatoes with Gelda and pulls them out effortlessly, leaving her amazed. After finishing the work, Alan complains about how little they earn and finally understands how hard life is for commoners. Later, the chief arrives with a commoner, bringing fruit as an apology. The commoner sincerely regrets what happened. Rodan forgives him, but Teresia is not so quick to do so, reminding them that the mistake nearly killed Rodan. Other servants also come with gifts and kind words. Feeling emotional, Alan thinks that he has the best parents in the world. After that, Alan steps away to train. He summons his frogs and sets traps, but nothing appears. Just as he is about to give up, a massive bird arrives, a B-rank beast called an albaheron, and it starts killing his summons. Alan tries to run, but the system urges him to fight. He stuns the creature with a stone and attacks, but it does not work. He summons his wolves, yet they also fail to stop it. The bird knocks him down, and Alan realizes he is running out of strength. With each defeated summon, his energy drains away. He collapses to the ground, barely able to move, doing nothing but trying to avoid being devoured. Continuing the fight, Alan calls the Chus. They cling to the monster's neck and begin to drain its energy. This allows Alan to break free, although he ends up very weakened. Now that he has applied buffs, he can summon the Pochis and choose to attack, and with a blow to the head he manages to knock it down. The grimoire appears, informing him that he has defeated an Albaeon and gained 100 experience points. Alan celebrates, saying it was more satisfying than he expected. He then goes to his family to tell them about this achievement, bringing the Albaeon with him, although he lies and says he caught it in the sky. Everyone looks on in amazement, although Mash starts crying. His father asks if anything is broken, but Mash says he is fine. Gelda is impressed by what Alan captured using only a wooden sword and stones. However, he notices the dog bite marks and asks if it bit him. Alan replies that he is not sure because he was very focused. Gelda simply believes him and tells Rodan that he will take care of bleeding it out. At that moment, Alan notices the bump on Gelda's head and imagines that Corinna hit him. But anyway, just details. After that, Gelda takes Alan to help him with the Albaeon. Gelda explains that out of its 60 kilograms after bleeding it, only 20 kilograms remain. Only half of that is edible. However, the wings are very valuable. Alan thinks it is very kind of Gelda to explain this, although he also mentions that 60% of the beast will go to the village chief. This rule also applies to wild monsters, except for E-rank ones like horned rabbits and D-rank albions. Then we see Gelda remove the beast's magic stone. These are kept by the chief, since they are useless to them. But returning to the important point, a child captured a beast while Rodan is still injured, so they might be able to negotiate something with the village chief. This gives Alan an idea, which he shares with Gelda. They then go to the chief's house and bring the beast to tell their story. The chief is excited, but asks if they can keep the beast. The chief answers no, because the landlord demands more and more meat. Hearing this, Alan assumes that this is why commoners are allowed to hunt. Gelda then proposes giving them the feathers and the magic stone, but since that is not enough, he sadly explains Rodan's family situation. Alan also joins in, saying that he is hungry and even faints. This convinces the chief and he allows them to keep the beast. He goes even further and suggests that they keep the meat as long as they give the feathers and the magic stone. Gelda agrees, saying that albions are not caught very often. The chief thinks it must be very difficult to catch them, so he gives them permission to keep the meat. With this settled, Alan returns to the field to hunt more albions. He uses piantas as bait and sends the chus to drain them. Then he stuns them with a stone, sends the poachers to bite them, and finally finishes them with his sword, managing to hunt 2 more. Alan mentions that he hunts once every 3 days, and this is the first time he has not lost a single summon. The grimoire informs him of the experience he gained, allowing him to reach 1000 out of 1000 and reach level 2. Alan sees that his stats will increase, except for his skills, but this is already a big achievement for him. After all, after 6 years, he has finally leveled up, and he considers it something worth celebrating. Back at home, he shows what he hunted. Rodan is surprised, and Alan points out that he even did it all at the same time. Rodan notices something but chooses not to say it. Suddenly, they hear the bells, realizing it is time to train with Karina. We then see Alan dodging, blocking, and taking hits. While doing this, he thinks about what he will do next to survive the winter. His plan is to dry the meat he hunted and then trade the hide. While counterattacking, he also thinks that he should take advantage of the presence of the albions to kill 20 of them and reach level 3. However, he finds it difficult to do this before the end of the year. Because of this distraction, Karina finds an opening and lands a blow, defeating him. After the fight ends, the girl says goodbye, promising to return another day. That night, Alan is seen together with his parents. Determined to hide his secret no longer, he tells them that when he was 1 year old, he received a divine oracle. His parents are shocked. Just as he expected, his father asks if it was the god Ella, and Alan confirms it, quoting the words spoken by the divine being, which promised him wisdom and strength. Teresia does not fully understand, so Alan explains that it seems he is smarter than others and a bit physically stronger. He also tells them that his trial would be harsher than that of 100 people combined. Hearing this, his parents lament and ask the god for mercy. Rodan then asks if he passed the first stage today, since he noticed that the scar on Alan's face had disappeared. Alan is surprised that he noticed, and his father tells him that he also passed his own trial. His mother then asks about the result of his ritual. Alan replies that 2 months ago he received an oracle from the MEA about it, and that his attributes were judged as weak because his growth was slow. He also explains that no gift appeared because his ability is something completely new. His father seems curious to know more, but Alan says that he still does not know. This is a lie, but he can only apologize in his heart since he cannot risk people seeing him as dangerous if they see him summoning creatures. His mother then approaches him and hugs him tightly, deeply worried, because she never knew how much he struggled to overcome the trial imposed by God. His father then asks what he plans to do now. Alan answers that he will keep moving forward. Rodan expected this answer and tells him not to hesitate to ask for help if he ever needs it. However, he forbids him from telling others, since they might see it as blasphemy against their god. After that, Alan asks for permission to tell Gelda, since Gelda has been bragging non-stop for days because of Karina. Alan sees no problem with this and agrees. Months pass. Now, Alan is seen cutting up albion meat together with Gelda. Gelda tells him that he always thought Alan was not an ordinary child, but never imagined he would receive a trial from his god. After that, we see them walking through the city carrying a huge sack of meat. They talk for a while, and Gelda asks if these are his first purchases. Alan confirms it. Gelda mentions that ever since commoners stopped joining the hunts, everything has been going better. Speaking of them, Alan asks about the difference between them and the commoners. Gelda explains that it is due to status and taxes, since commoners are not taxed at 60% like they are. Instead, every year they must pay 3 gold coins per adult, and 1 per child. This catches Alan's attention, and he takes the chance to ask if it is possible to become a commoner. Gelda replies that it is possible by paying 10 gold coins, or it can also be granted as a reward by the Lord of the Lands. Alan does the math and realizes that his family would need a total of 50 gold coins. They then arrive at a shop where they trade the meat for salt. After that, they go to another fruit stall. Back home in the afternoon, Alan reviews what he learned about prices. Over the next few days, they return to the city again. Alan writes everything he learns in his grimoire and discovers that 1 gold coin equals 100 silver coins and 1,000 copper coins equal 10,000 iron coins. With this and the prices of goods in mind, Alan thinks that he only needs to kill 500 albayons to earn his 50 gold coins. He then goes to another shop and asks if they have a potion to recover mana. Since they do not, he asks for something to heal wounds, and the seller points out some plants, which Alan draws in his grimoire. He also asks about Myrise flowers. The seller says he does not have any and could not buy them either, but mentions that he once had one by chance. It was the one he sold to Gelda last month. He remembers that he offered to sell it for 3 gold coins instead of 5 to save a friend. A few days later, he ended up selling it anyway, losing 2 coins in the process. Knowing now what Gelda did for his father, Alan is moved and gives the seller some albayon meat, saying that thanks to him, his father survived, and that he will bring more meat another day. When Alan leaves the shop, he sees a weapon priced at 50 silver coins. At that moment, the blacksmith's son appears together with the village chief's son. The blacksmith's son pushes Alan and demands that he become his lackey. Alan gets angry, but he is not interested in a fight that would not give him any experience. Even so, he draws his sword to scare him and challenges the axe user to draw his weapon and fight. The boy accepts the duel and tells Paramus, the chief's son, to watch while he goes back. He immediately returns with a shovel. The axe user fights well, but he is no match for Karena, and with one move, Alan disarms him. Before leaving, Alan tells Dagora that he will come back to buy something and walks away, leaving him angry. That afternoon, Alan's father removes his bandages and proudly shows that he is fine. Teresia tells him to be careful so he does not get hurt again. Alan enjoys this family moment as they all talk together. The next day, Alan is at Karena's house training with Dagora, while Karena practices with her younger brother. Alan notices that she holds back when fighting him. Dagora tries to attack Alan by surprise, but Alan dodges and Dagora ends up crashing into the ground. After training, everyone returns home. At night, Alan and his mother take care of his siblings. At that moment, his father Rodin and Gelda arrive, both looking worried. Inside the house, they explain what happened. The Lord of the Lands has summoned them and decided to increase the hunting quota to 15 boars. This means that commoners will now have to participate as well. Teresia objects to this decision, but Rodin explains that these are the Lord's orders. Gelda adds something even more worrying. If they do not meet the quota, new serfs will be recruited. Alan understands the problem clearly. With more serfs, there will be less land for each family, and some could lose their land if they fail to meet the quota. Gelda also warns that next year the quota will increase to 20 boars. Teresia calls this absurd and far too dangerous, but Rodin insists that the Lord of the Lands does not care about their opinion. Alan agrees, saying that even if they meet the quota, the chief could simply raise it again, making the situation even worse. When Gelda criticizes the commoners for being useless, Alan agrees but says that they can be made useful. He trusts in the wisdom granted to him by the god of creation. Days later, Alan arrives together with the commoners and the other serfs, ready to act. Rodin tells them that he has already recovered. One of the servants asks if his son will go with them. The father answers yes, because they will follow his strategy, but he will go alone. Alan thanks him for bringing him, although he really wanted to hunt together with them, but his father did not allow it. Still, to hunt boars, he must train the newcomers so that what happened to his father will not happen again. At that moment, a blond man approaches and apologizes for what happened last year. The father tells him that it is fine and that he should focus on the house. With everyone ready, Gelda starts the march. Alan is excited to finally leave the village and sees from afar the White Dragon mountain range. He mentions that every autumn the boars come down from the mountain looking for food, and that the legendary White Dragon lives at the top. However, because he was distracted, he fell behind the others. When they arrive at the place, they go to their positions. Some lure a boar, and everyone prepares to stop it. When the boar is held in place, Rodin and the others appear and attack from the sides. Alan analyzes his father's strategy. He says that his father has used it for 10 years to hunt without a blessing, and then gives orders to the others to move. From his point of view, it was a mistake to let the newcomers restrain the boar, because just participating in the fight is enough to gain experience. The father gives the order to attack, and they manage to bring the boar down. The newcomers feel satisfied with the result. Alan mentions that with this plan, everyone leveled up because the boar was rank C, although he himself gained nothing since he did not participate. The newcomers then go to thank Alan, which leaves him with the feeling that he won the battle, but not the war. After that, they go to gather water. A deer asks Alan if he will come back tomorrow. He answers yes, but asks them to talk to his father so he can use a spear. However, if they do that, Rodan will scold them. A man in charge of skinning says that they are lucky to go hunting, but also thanks them because they have a lot to skin. When Alan hears this, he asks him for a favor and asks if he can skin the animals himself. In exchange, he will keep 2 bags of meat each time. The man asks if he is sure, and Alan says yes. He also says that he planned from the start to sell the meat to get 50 gold coins and buy commoner status. His plan is for a neighbor to skin the meat, give it to the butcher, and save time. On another day at home, Alan mentions that there are more newcomers. With them, they can form 2 teams and earn double. However, he wonders why the Lord insists on hunting more boars when there is no food shortage. Just then, another boar appears. Everyone repeats the same strategy as before and manages to take it down. This makes them feel strong, and Alan levels up. He remembers that just before the fight he summoned Denka so it would be stepped on. Since making one of his summons get attacked counts as battle participation, this allowed him to gain experience. Back in the present, he praises himself for being a smart and experienced player, though he apologizes to his good friend Denka for using him that way. Sometime later, Karena and Alan return home after visiting the Lord of the Lands. Both of them are happy because they received many gifts. At home, both families then share a banquet. The lords of the house enjoy grilling the meat. At that moment, Gelda notices the flask Alan has beside him and asks if it is something special. Alan answers that it is liquor. This makes the lords happy, which the protagonist was already expecting. Because of that, he decides to control them right away. Changing the topic, he tells Mesh that tomorrow they will train with the spear. This makes the boy very happy. The lords are left confused when they see that he ignored them. Rodin then talks to Alan about the liquor. Our protagonist pretends not to understand, which starts to annoy Gelda. Seeing that they are desperate enough, Alan proposes a challenge to both of them. Gelda accepts without hesitation, but then Alan asks what he will get if he wins. Both adults do not know what to offer, so Alan asks them to let him use a spear during all the boar hunts that year. The 2 adults look at each other as if realizing they fell right into his trap, but they do not refuse the offer. With nothing more to discuss, Gelda asks what the challenge is. Alan answers that they will do arm wrestling. Confident of victory, Gelda offers to go first. Before starting, Alan looks at his grimoire and notes that he even used all his attack buffs, so he does not think he will lose. Without hesitation, he places his hand on the table. They both grip hands, and at Karena's signal, the duel begins. At first, Gelda is winning with confidence. However, Alan starts going all out, slowly pushing back until he completely turns the match around. After the duel ends, Alan admits it was close and assumes that Gelda's attack stats are around 150 to 200. After that, it is his father's turn. When Alan touches his father's hand, he feels the calluses on it, which makes him think for a bit, but he still does not hold back. The duel starts evenly, but when the father sees that his own son is putting up a real fight, he decides to get serious. He releases all his strength and wins overwhelmingly. Alan only smiles, admitting his defeat, but he also confirms that his father's strength is much higher, possibly 300 or more. After this, Alan hands over the liquor, which makes Gelda and his father celebrate, and they immediately start drinking. While they do, their wives scold them for being so rough with a child. Teresia, for her part, encourages Alan. The protagonist looks confused, but assumes his mother thought he was upset. Rodin also encourages him, saying that he is not weak, it is just that Rodin is too strong, and that is why Alan cannot go boar hunting either. Alan agrees to give up on it for now, but promises that he will eventually win. After a few drinks, Gelda gets drunk and demands that his wife bring more food. Matilda gets angry at his lack of respect and pins him to the ground, which surprises everyone, especially Alan, who assumes her stats are rank C. After some time, Alan sees that his summoning level has increased to level 4 and his grimoire expansion has reached level 3 with storage. He also notices that he now has access to rank E creatures and new species, but he needs to perform synthesis to unlock them. Since he has plenty of mana, he believes he can chain them. He can also carry 10 more cards. He mentions that the value of blessings depends on the level of the summons and that their stats can skyrocket if he creates 40 rank E cards. With this, he will be able to beat his father in arm wrestling. He also reads about the storage feature, and the grimoire shows him a hole just in case. He tests it by throwing in a stone and sees a list of what is inside. Then he tries putting in random items and discovers that there is no storage limit. He explains that knowing how many items you can carry is very important in a game, and he wonders why he has such an explanation of the storage ability at such a low level. Normally, you get special abilities right when you need them, because that is the creator's intention, so there must be a reason why he has storage. Later, he tries to summon a rank E insect, but notices that he does not have much mana, although it has fully recovered. The grimoire then writes that to summon a rank E creature, he needs magic stones. That is when he remembers the bag he has hidden away. From it, he takes out a magic stone obtained from the horned rabbits. Now he tries to summon a rank E creature again. However, it tells him that he does not have enough magic stones, so he gets the idea to put them into storage. This time, it works, and his insect appears, a rank E butterfly. When he summons it, he notices that it is huge, but at that moment his mother arrives. The butterfly hides behind his back, and Alan lies by telling the truth. His mother does not understand, tells him he is strange, and leaves. This relieves Alan, and he starts dancing. On another day, we see Alan being attacked by a beast, but it is actually his own summon, a rank E saber-toothed tiger. It gives him a buff of 10 through its blessing, which will make him twice as strong, and he names the tiger Tama. He then tries to summon a bird, but nothing happens until he remembers to put in the magic stone, and it appears in the book. This makes him realize that he must gather tons of magic stones. In the afternoon, Alan tells his father about the rabbits. His father is surprised, but does not think they are still around, since they dug a trench around the entire village a couple of years ago. This disappoints our protagonist a bit, because now he will not be able to get more magic stones. The next morning, while the others are training, Alan asks Pelmoas about magic stones. Pelmoas explains that they are small gems embedded in monsters near their hearts, and are mainly used to power magical tools. These magical tools are objects that activate when used with magic stones. As far as he knows, the royal capital has many kinds of them. He also adds that rank D and rank C stones can be useful to people in the capital. However, rank E stones are basically just trash and can even be found lying on the ground. After walking a bit, he finds one on the ground and gives it to our protagonist. Alan thinks for a moment, guessing that he may have to search around the village. After some time, and with the help of some villagers, he manages to gather a large number of magic stones, which he uses to create all the available rank E summons. Because of this, he is now ready to test his abilities. Suddenly, the wind blows and one of his cards flies away. From it, Hawkins comes out and warns that a boar is approaching. The creature appears behind our protagonist and charges at him. Then Vince and his other card are summoned and heal his wounds. After this, when the boar is about to attack again, Papillon the butterfly intervenes by releasing particles that put the boar to sleep. After that, Tama the feline appears and attacks the beast's head, and together they manage to defeat it. Our protagonist celebrates this victory. However, another boar appears and tries to charge at him, but luckily Wally protects him by knocking the boar out. Finally, after defeating all the beasts, our protagonist celebrates the victory, but sadly everything was only an illusion created by his mind. Realizing that all of this was nothing more than his imagination, our protagonist tells us that during the last 6 years he has been thinking carefully about how a summoner is supposed to be played, but now he knows that this is not the correct way. Lying on the grass, he tells himself that he must figure out how to use the full potential of a summoner on his own. He summons his creations and explains the role of each one. Beast-type summons are for attack, insect-type are for applying buffs, bird-type are used to gather and transmit information, plant-type are for healing, and finally, stone-type are only for defense. With this in mind, he declares that he has an unmatched army of creatures, a supreme power that makes him the strongest summoner, even stronger than the Demon King.